Now we have our next panel discussion. From cybersecurity, we'll come to cloud. And this topic is on next gen cloud computing, the future of cloud driven digital transformation. And for this, I'd like to call on stage the panelists. Can we have Gurukeerthi Gurunathan, co founder and CTO of CaratLane? Yes. Then can we have on stage Gaurav Sharma, CTO of FNP? Yes, sir. Can we have on stage Krishnendu Majumdar? Sure. Okay. So again, like the normal panel, again, a common question to each panel is to sort of kickstart the discussion. We all know by now cloud is so much mainstream now in all the organizations, and I'm sure that's applicable to all people who are present here in the hall today. We know the benefits of cloud, but when we are talking about organizations embarking on the next phase of their digital future, how is this today's multi-cloud environment? And today an organization will have public cloud, maybe even public cloud from multiple vendors, uh, private cloud, certain applications, some applications might be on the edge, and a complete hybrid model. So in terms of agility, scalability, and most importantly cost efficiency, how are organizations looking at that typical multi-cloud architecture? I'll start with you, Gurukirti.
Sure, thanks for the questions. So we migrated to cloud back in year 2012, and it was so long ago, and that's when somewhere like close to that is when AWS actually entered India, and I still remember that we used to be hosted in Singapore, and they didn't have a presence in India back then. So it was a leap of faith and trust back then, but now it's a very natural choice for all businesses to get into the cloud. And back then, even the last few years, the value proposition that multi-cloud platforms bring in was mostly on the basis of cost. The cost of one provider versus the other is how the pitch generally starts, and it looks very attractive for any CXO to take such a decision. And it used to be a very tough decision because cloud is like marriage. Divorce is very painful, and hence we used to think a lot before doing it, and that itself actually was a very big friction to migrate from one to another. But now, I mean, fast forward now, we are able to see the pitch is more on the capabilities, and even a lot of help that comes from the other the alternate cloud providers also, to start talking about certain services that can actually be migrated from the existing ones to the other. And cost is still a factor that comes in. So in a way, I think because organization is evolving into building multiple capabilities, whether it is on the data layer or on the functional layer, on the services building, it's easy to build a modular structure that certain parts could be in different cloud platforms. And that's how we think about it. We have started the journey few years ago, and we're able to see the multi-cloud happening very seamlessly. The data transfer between the environments is one factor to consider. Cost is another factor to consider in this play. So that's my limited feedback at this point.
Okay, thank you. Gaurav, I'll come to you next with the same question in turn.
Thanks. So hi, I'm Gaurav. I'm currently the CTO at FNP. I've been with multiple organizations. Right, prior to this, I was with Nika, InfoEdge, Microsoft. I've seen the journey, right, how the cloud transformations are happening. Uh, right, we touched upon right what agility currently the multi-cloud is bringing. I think one important aspect to the way the cloud has evolved and the way the serverless technologies have evolved. I think one important aspect is that gives the freedom to choose, right, according to your application where you want to be, right. For certain serverless, right, you could be right for Google marketing, right. You might want to use GCP for certain aspects related to data, right. You might still be hosted. So depending on your application, depending on your need, with the way the serverless is evolving, I think overall the multi-cloud architecture is a reality right now, where certain parts of your application are hosted on different clouds, right. Another aspect, right, in terms of right overall agility is also right how different functions of your organization adopt, right. You could be using certain SaaS offerings, right, how, right. So a lot of it is right not dependent on right from that aspect, right. So I think multi-cloud is a reality right now, right. I think a lot of your, I think we had a very good discussion before this on security. I think another aspect where dr is another aspect where people consider multi-cloud. So yeah, it's a lot of aspects, right, where it is helping. And I think it's very exciting to see the kind of innovations we are seeing every day, right. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Uh, Thank you. I'll next come to you, Krishnendu. Your views on this.
Sure. Hi, I'm Krish. We at Yubi, we are building the first marketplace for corporate debt across India, and also a marketplace for collections. So as you know, like giving loans is easy, collecting loans is the difficult part, right? That's what banking is about. So now when you see that when we are providing this service marketplace to all these banks, we are a 4-year organization. We are already connected, deeply integrated with almost 80% of PSU banks, private banks, and almost 180 NBFCs. And what we realized is that each one of them is in a different stage of their cloud journey. Now, it becomes very difficult for a provider like us that how do you provide your solution to all these different people? Like, for example, some PSUs are very advanced in their cloud adoption. They have private cloud. Some PSUs still talk about on-prem. So now at least like in this 4-year journey, what has happened is that our entire solution, entire architecture, and every piece of it is completely cloud neutral. So to your point that it becomes so difficult to move from one to another, uh, we chose from the very beginning that it will be completely cloud neutral solution. And we have come a long way. Like for example, take any piece of our software, whether we deploy on Kubernetes in a bank's on-prem, or whether it is a GCP, whether it is Amazon, we are able to follow the same tool set and deploy our solutions like within a couple of hours with the same level of observability, same level of DR, and all of that. So it becomes very, very important. Like if you see that the multi-cloud is the future, it becomes also very, very important how you make the architectural choices of what you build, right? Like for example, if you use something like very, very custom for a which is provided by only one cloud provider, not by the others, you have to do a trade-off call. That is it really worth it? Because tomorrow, if I have to move, I can't. And to the other points that Gaurav and you made with respect to cost, I think cost is not a single variable. Like for what we have seen is that some cloud providers they give you an extremely good cost on compute, versus somebody will give you a very excellent cost on say ingress or outgress of ingress of data, or somebody will give excellent pricing on say GPUs. Now I think every company is going after the GPUs that they need, right? So building your infrastructure so that you can take advantage of the best is becoming the theme. And that's where I think like for many companies it will be that or not, am I stuck with one player, or am I able to take advantage of the best? But then the effort has to be put in that you have to make your entire code a little bit cloud neutral. So that
Okay.
would be my
So cloud neutrality and portability between different clouds. Yes, especially when an organization has so many applications now, that becomes a critical aspect of it. Sham, I'll come to you next with again the same question in terms of.
Good afternoon. Um, I'll touch upon two topics. Primarily, one is again, with respect to compliance, right? We operate, in AirAsia, we have a big market which is China, and China. When it comes to China, compliance is, you can't, typically use an AWS or a GCP. So we pretty much use Alibaba within, China. So I think compliance again one area where multiple clouds, kind of naturally fit in. I also want to talk about, I think a lot of people here talked about the, vendor lock-in and going neutral, right? I think it's absolutely essential. Um, I think one aspect, meaning it's not too rosy, right? Multi-cloud is all great, it's redundancy, global scale, but there are a number of challenges. I think we'll have to be too sure. I think hybrid model works great, if that pretty much satisfies the business needs. So my philosophy is again, look what the business wants. I think don't venture into a solution which probably could bite you later. Hybrid, on-prem and a single public cloud provider, probably could solve your problem too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Neeraj? Yes.
Hey, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I believe people might be hungry a bit, so I'll just wrap it up closely. I think the majority of the people already covered some of the points, but I'll try to give it a different color. So I think cloud is also perspective, right? Again, if you are a traditional enterprise, the way people are looking at cloud is very, very different. Definitely, they are not heading on cloud straight, right? Versus a startup, because obviously when you start up, your budget is one of the key things. So obviously people is straight on hook to the, so your journey starts from the cloud. And I think that's where when people talk about that people are coming back from the cloud, I don't know any DNB or anything which is coming back from the cloud, because I think the way people are evolving, they know how to optimally use the cloud. I think that's one of the key difference between traditional enterprise versus startups or any other DNBs for that matter, right? So I think I would differentiate it that way. Traditional companies are defining based on what use cases they want to have the cloud. And I think traditionally it has been more on achieving a DR, which is infrastructure, right? Means IaaS, right? Then they slowly thought, okay, probably, oh, I would offload my DB on the cloud, right? I can achieve redundancy based on that. So I think achieving multi-cloud versus single cloud is purely dependent on who is sound in what area. I mean, let's say GCP, generally people take about AI and ML, right? I mean, generally people talk about AWS in terms of when you need strong compute and all those kind of things, right? So it is obviously more use case driven too, right? Definitely. And with the new advent of technologies, when you to scale up, there it is more important because AI, ML, you need huge GPUs. Like even data centers are investing. Yota has invested heavily and they tied up with NVIDIA, right? So this is kind of, you can say, private cloud, right? So I think it is purely dependent on use case, where you want to head on and how you want to achieve resiliency, right? While you achieve your business and technological outcome, because end of the day, everything is meant to give the business outcome. Nothing is like in itself is there is nothing, right? Whether you stay with a single cloud versus multiple cloud, even AWS gives you global capability. You can run it from anywhere. So I think it is cost, and at the same time what resilience you are achieving while achieving the business outcome in that, because capex versus opex at the end of the day, that's what comes on the table, right? How much you are saving, how much you are achieving, and what business outcomes you are getting. Your MVPs are much faster with cloud based technologies. So that's what probably I will try to summarize, because I think other points is well covered by you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, very well summarized, all the panelists, in terms of how the cloud is being mapped into the digital future for organizations. But an important aspect which was discussed, about multiple clouds, and now there are multiple clouds, there are multiple cloud providers. So what I'm trying to gain from each of you is, can there be, from your own organizational perspective or your experience, what are the parameters in terms of selection of these cloud providers? Because now you are working with multiples of them, and they are working mm, in a you are looking at a cloud portability in between each of them. So to achieve or ensure your operational efficiency, what are the parameters behind the selection of these different cloud providers? I'll start with you. Thank you. Yes.
I think at CaratLane, it starts with the features. I mean, the what the business needs, like how you were saying about that drives the implementation. But once it is in the plate of the technology team to start looking at it, we look at the best fit for the capability. In fact, once we have identified the current cloud, and we try to, as much as possible, try to get into the same cloud provider, not try to move just for the sake of one feature. So once that capability is figured out, the people who are working on it, do they have to learn something new, or are there like services available already? What is the kind of scalability that is needed for that particular feature? Is it going to be something which is one time, or it's going to be something for a seasonal benefits that it needs to give as a feature? So all of this factors goes into picture on the right fit, choosing the right fit for a cloud. But I would say the larger conversation will start from moving the IT infrastructure and so on for a single cloud or a multi cloud, and then at a feature level, these discussions don't happen so easily to figure out anything related to particular cloud.
So I would just add one more. I think
Yeah.
in the cloud journey, platformization is also playing a bigger role, because I think end of the day, everyone want to create something which runs uniquely across everything, and because that saves a lot of time and cost, right?
True.
And I think that's one of the key element while driving any adoption, because what you can set as a standard, then you can put it across anywhere, right? I mean, that saves time, money, and a lot of things. So those standard things are very much important.
Okay, so basically the features and the platforms, that becomes a critical decision making parameter for the our technology decision makers here when they are selecting between multiple cloud providers.
I will
Uh,
add one more thing to that.
yes.
Yeah. So I think, like, also, as he rightly pointed out, it is the total cost of ownership, right? Like, for example, when you see a startup, and I think nowadays most companies, they say they are a startup because nobody has money to throw around, right? So if they are a startup, the most important thing becomes that what you want your engineers to focus on, solving your customer value proposition and the solutions for them, right? So what are the managed services available on those clouds? You don't want your people sitting and debugging a cloud, right? Why something is not working. So I think, like, the overall ecosystem of whatever managed services are provided, what type of services are available in the first place, compatible, right? Because when you are building this, you are saying that you are looking from a customer first perspective and deciding on that, on what components you will use. At that point, you should not get stuck with, like, how will I run and maintain it? So how the cloud is helping you to free your bandwidth is also becomes important. Otherwise, like, you choose a cloud and then your entire team is not building anything for the customer, but sitting and debugging the cloud why something is not working,
True.
then it's a waste of time.
Exactly. So that maybe since it's there, I'll ask you what about, I'll ask just a corollary to that question. So how much do you think it's a third party cloud provider and with the internal team? So how do you ensure that alignment is so? See, end of the day, the whole purpose of cloud was outsourcing some part of the non-core business part to there, but you end up doing that alignment with the team. So it's
So,
a sort of a contradiction. How do you
so
manage that?
actually, for us, it is not non-core. Like, we run everything on the cloud, right?
True.
So everything on the cloud, and one of the aspects is also, like, as he pointed out, like, don't go to multi-cloud just for the sake of it, right? If you see, we run a business where the DevOps becomes very important, right? Because the
Yes.
uptime of your systems, not only for us, but for also all the banks that we work with. They want like almost 24/7 uptime of the solutions that they integrate with us. Now, we will solve for those, but also the thing is that we cannot hire a army of DevOps just to monitor everything, right? So when we work with these cloud providers, we make it very clear. And even if we are going from one cloud to another cloud, we make it very clear to them that, okay, you know what, you are not a vendor here to sell the cloud and walk away, right? So they have to make sure that the proper knowledge transfer happens, how my people are trained to operate that cloud in the first place, right? So, for example, typically whenever we move from one cloud to another, it is a strategic conversation, and they put together very clear milestones about how they will train our people in terms of like, so that it becomes a seamless transition. Otherwise, like it is like you buy a huge machine, keep it in this room, nobody knows how to operate it, right? So that will not work. Yeah.
So I'll just add a bit on. So I think another important thing is while we are running everything, right? At the end of the day, sustainability, right? And how you sustain, how you continue to run. So how many tools, what kind of tools are they providing so that you are better optimizing your cloud? You are leveraging it at the fullest, right? I mean, because if you look at cloud today, people have surpassed it now. People are looking at FinOps, right? How optimally I can use my resources on the cloud. Are we really using it optimally? I was in Kochi yesterday and we were discussing with multiple leaders about the same thing, that when you are on the multiple cloud, how do you ensure, because it is technology business management, you may have multiple technology stacks sitting in, but do you need all that? So question is right again, looking back also. So I think that is another aspect to it in terms of choosing the cloud, who is providing you what value at the end of the day, because technology inherently doesn't bring anything. End of the day, it is meant to enable business, right? So that's another angle to somebody who is giving you better observability tools so that you rectify it on time, or maybe self-rectification.
Yeah.
I think we had about a year and a half back, we acquired a company, and then obviously we had to port from their provider to our cloud provider. If I look at it broadly, right, there is a huge amount of planning element, but if you look at execution side of things, right, as long as you are in a containerized world, right, things are a lot easier in terms of movement. It saves you huge amount of trouble, especially with Kubernetes, right? So I think, meaning obviously, if nobody is using Kubernetes, too bad, right? But yeah, good that people were using it, then becomes easier in terms of migration. But there is a huge amount of planning that needs to go in terms of, like in a software practice, right? You always try to move the complex use case first before the simplest use case, right? And cloud, I don't think it's any different.
uh, Gaurav, one point I'd like to add on. We talked about the compliances, and then these multiple cloud providers, and then you have to look at the compliance at the same time. And there are so many compliances, different sectors will have their own compliances. How do you ensure the operational efficiency when you have to meet those compliance? That is a business requirement you have to do, and then you have these multiple cloud providers. So you can answer.
I think, Miss, I wanted to add to the previous one.
Sure.
that,
Plus,
right?
first you can add.
Right. So I think a lot of points covered, right, from that perspective, right? Ultimately, it is about the customer and the business needs, and I think a lot has evolved in the last few years. I think we all have moved from Singapore to Mumbai. I think that is a transition journey. What was available earlier versus what is available now. I think clouds have evolved, right? So that choices have evolved, right, in terms of what is being offered in each of the clouds, right? But ultimately the decision is first, what is the offering, right? Whether, right, I get that where I want for my customer, right? And right, what is the cost? I think that point was covered earlier also, right? Cost, different cloud providers have different cost structure, compute, network, storage, right? Everything needs to be considered according to your needs, where what is giving you value, right? For choosing the right provider, right? So a lot of aspects on, right, multiple aspects needs to be considered, right, for making that decision.
Okay. Yes.
Another important point here is complexity versus simplicity, right? Many people, as a techno leader, I have seen in general, we tend to go towards complex solutions versus simple solutions. And I really got somebody from network might understand. Many times you talk about cyber security and all this, right? Where you look for firewalls, WAF, many components. But sometimes many things can be handled by just a TCP or layer 4 ACL itself. We just block the port and everything is done, right? So I think that's also very important thing, that if we keep ourselves isolated from that bias of complexity versus simplicity bias.
Yes. So trying to make something simple, you're deliberately making it more complex. Okay, next round I'll go from here, starting with Krish. Now the thing is, we know everyone has executed their cloud strategy in place. How has your cloud strategy improved your business outcomes? And I'm looking at quantified, that can be ROI or TCO or whatever, but in quantifiable measures, how has it improved your business outcome?
A very excellent question. I think, like, see, for us, being a startup, like, we started on cloud like anybody else. But I think, like, what has helped us is that whenever you see very rapid growth, right, we did not have to sort of sweat about it, right? Like, for example, today in our platform, we disburse close to 1 million loans a month, and we handle close to 6 crore account collection every month.
Okay.
Just 8 months back, it was half this number, right?
True.
So when you have to scale up very quickly, that is not a problem that you are thinking constantly. That is point number one. Point number two, I think the speed of innovation has increased quite a bit, right? For example, because all the tools are available to the developers at their fingertips, it is not about somebody will provision, somebody will give, then I will try to find out. So the speed of innovation has increased quite a bit, and which means, like, for our customers, we are able to launch newer products in shorter and shorter cycles, right?
Exactly.
Right. So that will be the second. And the third is that also when you are using the cloud, one aspect becomes, like, as we are expanding globally, right? And every country has their data localization rules. Again, like, these were earlier big problems people used to think about. Now we don't have to, right? So whether it is about as your business scales, how you scale very seamlessly. Second is the speed of innovation. And the third is that as you expand globally, how seamless it becomes. So all three are very much pegged into the core business value.
Okay, excellent. 3 points. Summing it up, one is the scaling up, faster scaling up, more seamless scaling up. Second, in terms of innovation, the reducing the business cycle or the product life cycle itself, and that helps in business. Obviously, you will get returns sooner and faster. And last, obviously, when these era of expansion, you're looking at geographical localization.
So eventually, basically, MVP timeline shrinks, right? And you eventually make more money within the same time, right? So that helps you get more bucks out of that time.
Okay.
And I think the good part is, because these guys continue to do research, like all the major clouds at least, so they are well aware, ahead in time what is going to come. There's a quantum computing. Now you talk about 5G or edge cloud, right? Many of the companies are integrating their workloads where they are, content based management and all this, right, with the edge cloud, so that you can give a better experience to your end users, right? So many of these things are already happening.
See, the biggest relief for our business team is when they want to think about something, implementation or the tech or the scalability is the last thing that they want to worry about, because they want to ideate, do something for the next planning cycle for the next month, meeting the quarterly targets. All of that, cloud or entire IT, I would say, should become a hygiene factor. Now, that is the biggest ask from the business, and we are able to do it because of this cloud infra. In fact, we have burnt our fingers early in the days that when this used to be the biggest bottleneck. We'll have to spray and pray for a long time for things to work. But nowadays, it has become so easy and much more predictable. Now, which is agility for the business. Number two is, I would categorize all these SaaS providers also, who are using the cloud behind the scene as an important capability that the cloud has given to growing business like ours. So anything non-core, if you want to do some, let's say the cash management, you want to talk about workflow management, which is not the business that we are in. All of these plug and play SaaS modules or the businesses have flourished because of the cloud, and we're able to easily get it working for us. So it is the feature capability for the business at a cost which is and there are many players. In fact, the more enterprises that is mushrooming in this space is going to help growing business like us to have a competing capability and at the cutthroat cost also. So all of this matters for the, and these are all possible because of the cloud, directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for us, one of the biggest benefits has been in the data insights. Earlier, if I remember 6-7 years back, it was very hard. Meaning, it takes a couple of days for us to get a inside view on how the business is doing. Right? Today, it's literally live. Right? Maybe little bit delayed. 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Right? But you exactly know which is your main drivers in terms of countries, the routes, which is getting the maximum revenue. And like a lot of people touched upon, we have sale events pretty much every year, no, sorry, every month. And you really don't have to worry about infra, right? And
Scaling of
that's
thing.
like the huge benefit, right? It takes it. And the other and if you also look at like even if you look at AWS, they started off with very very small number of services, and today they've expanded to more than 200 services, and which is again listening to the customers. So a lot of times you think of something, it's usually available on the cloud, which you don't have to spend again as a SaaS provider or whatever. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Gaurav.
Yeah. So I think the points are touched, but I think 3 points mainly. I think I've worked a lot on e-commerce, so I think it's right. Scalability is one aspect, right, where we see traffic jumping from 1x, 10x, 100x, right. You don't have to plan too much, right? Just for, and we have done flash sales for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? You couldn't imagine that without a cloud, right? Where right,
True.
just for a short period you need that right infrastructure, right? Secondly, I think go to market, the way things have evolved, I think it's much faster now to be able to develop right, and roll out applications, right? You think of an idea and right within days you can right do a right MVP, right? So that's the kind of capability the cloud, right, the serverless or right whatever on the edge computing side, right? There are so many things happening out there, right, that is helping us in innovation, right? I think the third point was right on innovation, which is basically everything around. If we see the way Gen AI is coming in, right, the AI capabilities, the kind of models available out there, right? So there is so much you can do, and that is right. Right. That's the three major point I wanted.
Neeraj, you would like to.
I think everyone touched upon all the points. So for me, I think the key theme is portability, predictability, innovation, right? I mean, that's the key. I mean, I think agility is already there. It has always been there on the cloud, right? So people never thought about it. You can spin up anytime, you can reduce it on any time, but how efficiently you can do that has been over the period of time. So that end of the day, you kind of, as you were started your discussion, quantification, right? So I think quantification is a little difficult at this point in time, but definitely I would say at least 10-20% will always be there if you do it optimally. Means, so I think more, as I was saying, right, yesterday I was discussing on the same point, that FinOps has been the major key, that you are doing it, but how efficiently you are doing it is the key, because you may have multiple workloads running across the clouds, right? Are they always running? Do they need to run always? Right? So many of these kind of questions, right? APIs are being created. There are a lot of dormant APIs. End of the day, you are investing your resources and time, everything on that, right? So I think those are the key. So end of the day, it is going to be more on that part, predictability, so that you can control your costs and achieve better outcomes, right?
Okay. Any question from the audience? Yeah, can we have the mic at the back? At the back. पीछे पीछे mic.
So I have one question. So there's a lot of talk like enterprises are rejecting their move to the cloud because of promised cost saving or business agility. So what do you see are the reasons for the strategy gone wrong?
So, sorry, can you please come up with the question again?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk like enterprises are rejecting their move to the cloud because of the promised cost saving is not happening or the business agility. So what do you see the reasons for that?
You mean to say coming back from the cloud or
No, going
moving to the
Yeah.
See, I think majority of the instance what I have seen across enterprises working with large enterprises, I think obviously DR means, let's say I want to achieve a DR at any point in, like he mentioned it very properly, your workload goes high, right? How do you know? And in your data center, even if you go to colo or any cases, right, you are still limited because whatever you commit for, you're always going to get that. See, probably data center probably can become your like Google or AWS, but what is the limitation they have? They have a limitation on IAC, infrastructure as a code, right? Because they can't spin based on demand, so you have to commit for certain time frame. So I think that is those burst, right? Those scalability, agility, whatever term you want to use, right? That is where I think predominantly has been seen as a. But I think now cloud has gone next level. People are looking beyond that. Let's say serverless, right? That can I run my workload for some specific amount of time on a serverless on, because that is reducing the cost further, right? I think these are the predominant use cases which I have been seeing people talking about and taking out on the cloud. Traditionally it has been more of a DR and all those kind of things. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
I would just
One,
add
In
a
terms of
point
cost
to
saving,
that.
let's say a lot of CIs are complaining that our costs are more now after
Hmm.
moving to the cloud.
Yes.
So what is the kind of strategy problem or what do you see the reason? While planning that happened from
Okay, so I'll talk. So see, what has happened is I think it's a mindset. So that's what I, when I started my discussion, when you are born on the cloud, you know how to optimally use it, and you are well aware that every single click is going to cost you. But when you go to the enterprise mindset, what happens? You click a cable, you say, boss, I have just plugged the cable, right? Can it include a cost? But when you go to a cloud and you create a VNIC or whatever name is, right, it has a cost. Your egress has a cost, which was never assumed. And that's when now, as I was using the term, right, FinOps. So it has been very, very prevalent that do you know across your multi-cloud landscape, all your resources are using optimally? Do you really need it? So I think that is one of the reason cost control has not been there, right? So cloud you can still leverage, but I think it is getting mature day by day with the advent of more better tools to give you more visibility, because native tools are there, but are you able to optimize it efficiently? And that you can't use it across the cloud. Google will give their own cloud, Oracle or private cloud will give their own tools, right? I think for an IT leader, it's a single frame of glass which they need, so that they know overall in a holistic way what is that they are doing overall, right? And take better business decisions, more analytical driven.
anyone would like to add?
So I just, I mean, if you're going only for the cost, that strategy itself can be broken eventually. Because if you're not using any other capability and your business hasn't grown very differently from where you started, then you may not even need that kind of an investment. And that's why that long-term vision and total cost of TCO that we are talking about, all that matters, because ultimately it comes to whether you are given a powerful machine gun and you want to just do a Diwali crackers, right? Then that's not going to be helpful for you as a in a long term also.
Yes.
I think one comment, or see, when you look at the cloud as a whole, right, the entire deployment architecture is also very, very important. They talked about ingress and egress, right? In GCP, ingress is free, but again, you have to be very, very careful, right? If there are services that need not be exposed on the internet, you shouldn't be bot attacks, whatever, right? So that's one way to look at it. And you have spot instances, for example, or some of the things what we do is we shut down all our pre-prod staging dev environments Friday, right? And then it automatically starts up Monday. So you have ways to do it with IAC. It's all possible.
depends how you solution.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question. Someone. Yeah.
This is an extension to the previous question. Right, there are point in cases like Dropbox, right, and Ahrefs, which have actually moved their load workloads from cloud, and they've saved around like $75 million over a period of 2 years, and Ahrefs like $400 million over a period of 2 years, right? So there are some, basically on the point of cost control. When you put cost control in place, how is this going to play? And the second question is the challenge of vendor lock-in. Right now, during this era of AI, right, it's not just a neutral cloud, but the next level would be a neutral data hub, while data is the core of decision making, right? So how would that change the what do you say, the play or the configuration of IT decision making? If you look at neutral data hubs, maybe where data engineering comes into play, takes the central piece in the central role, how would that change the whole dynamics?
See, one thing that's what actually what I can really think of is, as I was talking, platformization. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say Google versus Amazon, AWS, or anything, right? So many companies are choosing not to rely on their stack completely. Let's say they choose Red Hat everywhere, right? So it means then your workloads are irrespective. Wherever you want to run, you can run, right? Because your applications are compatible to run on those kind of workload, right? So then you don't have that dependency. Obviously, you have to calculate your cost when, because you have to go and buy additional licenses for that, right? So those all need to be factored in. But for you to have a platform independent approach, you have to choose an independent platform then, which you can move across even on-prem to cloud or somewhere. And many enterprises are doing it, right? They are not going natively on their stack, because you need to design your application in that fashion, right? AWS application may not run on GCP, right? So that's one thing, right? And I think that is where everything. So then they go and choose from marketplace, because see, one thing is their native application is like, let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say AWS offers their own WAF, right? Web application firewall. Are they in Gartner or anywhere? Because they are not known for that, right? Then you can go and buy Palo Alto or Fortinet or anyone for that matter, because they are expert in that area, right? So my point is, this is not a very straight conversation, right? It depends on your budgets. It depends on what you want to achieve, how your application designed, and many more factors. At least on the platform part, when you want to be vendor neutral across the cloud, right? I mean, that's what I can really think of. And with respect to coming from cloud to data center, yeah, there are companies, but it is purely dependent on their business. Because see, let's say Dropbox, they are purely storage company, right? Purely storage at the end of the day. So what you need, they just need to give you kind of a front end web layer where you can go and upload, right? So they can tie up with Equinix or Yotas of the world, and they can give you that interface. As long as they achieve the same thing, I think that doesn't matter. So probably there may be some matrices which they are calculating on, and they find it better lucrative to be on prem or rather sitting on these data centers than being on the cloud.
So if you have seen the generally as a vendor ecosystem, right? Every time there is a specialist who comes up with something, there's going to be multiple competitors, and then there's going to be an aggregator that comes on top of it. That is how the world operates. And likewise, even in data, for example, there are providers who say that you give me the data, I will be multi-cloud. I will manage it, because not every company has a capability to just talk with multiple cloud providers and manage that, because you need the skill set and the timeline for doing everything, right? So that's one approach organization is. Of course, there is going to be lock-in with that aggregator now, but you are getting the benefit of the entire the cloud part of it. You will do a comparison before venturing into that. The other part is, like you were saying, there is a specialist application capability on top of data. If your data could be on AWS, but Google, for example, is very good in vision, if you, or for a search, for example, then you can build that service on top of the data which is still in a Redshift, for example, and then be able to do it also.
Anyone would
Thank
like
you very
to
much.
No, I think one aspect to be considered, right, especially the Dropbox example, right? They are that size that where they can invest that capex, right, that is required to move that infrastructure. So a lot of that is also part of the decision making, right? What kind of investment you need, right? What is right? I think we talked about aspects, right? That cloud provides, right? If that is adding value, right? And where we talked about enterprises, without evaluating why you are moving to the cloud, what is the benefit, with a proper cost governance and learning. I think it's a very right. everything is needed to make the right decision, right? Why you are moving, and right, and that's the decision factor, right?
Okay. Thanks. I think we will stop here because uh, we'll have lunch, and after that, there are a couple of more panel discussions left. Before we disperse, I would like to call on stage Henry to hand over the Tech Excellence Awards to our eminent panelist. Can we have Henry on stage? Yeah. So, can we have the award for Gurukeerthi Gurunathan?